We are happy to have in our midst Dr. Sister Marietta Di Mello, Principal, St. Teresa College for Women Autonomous, Eluru, Andhra Pradesh, India. Sister Marietta Di Mello, she is expertised in psychology, women leadership, and as a dynamic principle in every virtue. She has from her research desk 21 international publications. She has attended more than 40 conferences, workshops. Besides, she conducted more than 15, delivered 20 invited lectures, and published one book. She is honored with 15 reputed awards, and she is a member of various committees, both at research and administration. Thank you, sister. Once again, we welcome you into this conference and request you to kindly speak to our audience. Thank you very much, sister.
Respected Professor Dr. Ratnakar, CEO and Director Academics, IMRF, Institute for Education and Research, eminent speakers of today's conference, and dear participants, good evening to you all. Today I am going to share with you on women leadership with special reference to women in India. Before that, I want to bring to your notice and I have to share with you the beautiful saying of Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, who said something beautiful about the woman. He said, to awaken the people, it is the woman who must be awakened. Once she is on the move, the family moves, the village moves, the nation moves. It is indeed a very beautiful saying, and it comprises the leadership of women. He says something about women, which is something need to be admired on. Lately, I was reading in one of the Catholic magazine named New Leader. There I found something on woman. The poem goes like this. The poet says, "This one shall be called woman." And this poem left a deep impression in my mind, and it made me to reflect the beauty of a woman, her leadership qualities, her nature, her characteristics, her temperance, and all that a woman is. I would like to share with you, dear participants, about this poem. The poem goes like this. Nobility is your name, O woman. Your state is always pure and beautiful. Wisdom is your name, O woman. You wisely handle issues and concerns of time of everyday life. Endurance is your name, O woman. For every childbirth tells your pain. Courage is your name, O woman. Like the weak hen fighting a bird of prey to protect her young from enemy's clutch, you show courage in the face of adversity. Compassion is your name, O woman, to feel with your children and feed them with your own blood turned precious food. Hard work is your name, O woman, working day and night for the family. Peace is your name, O woman, the serenity that rests on your innocence face. Dignity is your name, O woman. You command respect for what you are. Love is your name, O woman. Love seeks not its own, but always of others. Mystery is your name, O woman. How your brief anger turns to tenderness. Disagreements melt into great understanding. You unfold life's wonders in your kindness. Let men respect you for what you are and learn to walk along with you always. Dear friends, if you look at this poem, you'd know the whole leadership role the woman plays in her life, in her day-to-day life. In every respect, every trait of her personality speaks of nothing but leadership. Therefore, great people, great men, and also women held women in high esteem, and indeed, they are great leaders. Today, as we are going to talk about women leadership, the psychological, social, socio-economic 2020, I want to bring to your notice something about leadership. Leadership, all of you know, it is to lead the people, and much more than that, to work towards the realization of goals. For example, let us see any organization, any institute, they have goals to fulfill. And every organization or institute, they expect their subordinates, the people, to fulfill the goals which they have. So the leader's duty is to make the subordinate to realize their goals. In this way, women are better off than men, I would say. Let us see, let us go a little further and see the characteristics and women leadership, or characteristics of women leadership. In nature, there is a lot of difference between men and women. Both men and women play their leadership role, but there is a difference, a distinctively they are different from one another. For example, let us take transformational leadership. In this style of leadership, the women on the whole, they function as a role model for their subordinates. They spend a lot of time in coaching their team. They take care of their personal development, and also women believe in the teamwork and authentic communication as a key to success. And women try their best to transform their followers into better people. Next one is a task focus. On the whole, women are task oriented. You give them a work to fulfill and give them a deadline. They will do it industrially without any delay, and they try to fulfill the work or complete the work within the given time. So they are very, very studious, I would say. It's another way of talking studious, very, very studious and very, very hardworking and committed. That is the leadership style. Therefore, women are still different from men. And also another beauty of women is they promote cooperation and collaboration. Women on the whole, they work for cooperation. They need a lot of time to collaborate with one another. They encourage, they promote, and also they support cooperation and collaboration. In every institute or organization, without cooperation and collaboration, the realization of goals becomes very, very difficult. Therefore, women take a first place in this regard. And this is the real nature of women. And this is the real beauty it will add to their leadership. Next one is a communication style. Communication style, you see, even our family, father and mother, usually father will command. No? Their style is such. We are not belittling any men in this. Okay? By nature, men command. They command in a such, they control, they have a controlling style. Whereas women are not like that. They are little far away from this commanding, ordering, or demanding. Their communication style is very different from men. And also, they are, what must say, they give more space for their followers to accomplish goals. Okay, and in communication style, what happens is they speak indirectly. Women by nature, directly they don't speak, directly they don't communicate in order to get the work done. Indirectly they speak, and also they give more time, more space for their followers to fulfill the goals or complete the work. At times, I would say this in this regard, it is a drawback because in some time in an organization the work need to be completed very fast. If we speak indirectly or give more space to the subordinates, works in the work there will be lot of laxity or it gets delayed. But still, women have such kind of nature. Coming to the self branding, what is self branding? Kind of feeling, I would say in a simple language, boasting. Oh, I have achieved. Regarding the success achievement, I'm talking about and bring the self branding. Women are more I'm not saying they're more successful or great achievers. They are. I will not use the word more. Men also equally are successful and achievers. But men will like to exhibit, whereas women fail in this regard. They don't want to tell the world, oh, I have achieved this much, I have done this much, this is my success, this is my achievement. In self branding, they are little behind. They expect others to tell that. Others to tell that. These are the beautiful qualities of women. Coming to something else for the humanly speaking, more of what must say personality type, they are empathetic. Empathetic, you all know what is empathetic. Empathetic is nothing but walking in the shoes of others to feel exactly what others feel. Women take a main role. Every leader need to be empathetic. Until unless we are empathetic towards others, we can never work together, what must say, in collaboratively or in with the great cooperation, and we'll not be able to realize the goal for which we are working. Therefore, friends, the empathetic is very, very important aspect today, and women excel in this aspect. And women are great listeners, very great listener. Look at your mother. Look at your father. Father has no patience. When we look at our father, no, we'll ask people, children especially, okay, father is a man, okay, he has his own nature, very busy with his work to accomplish, he is busy. And children, little children, even the adults or adolescent go, ask question, go to mommy, go to mommy. They push the children towards the mother and they have no time. They have no patience also. So they are not great listeners. But whereas women are great listeners. It is different when it comes to women. They are very, very great listeners. From the family, it is built up from the family. Mother will be cooking and she'll be listening to the child's, what must say, maybe some kind of complaints from the school. She'll be listening and listening. She can do, what must say, work together. Because woman is a great listener, not only family, also their workplace becomes a place where people can find love and affection. Another beautiful nature of women are, they believe in teamwork. Teamwork. I'm not saying men are not for it. By nature, men like to be very, very independent. They like to be alone. They do their work successfully. But whereas women, they like the teamwork, include everyone in a given task. They seek cooperation. They seek the support of others and they make it a successful. So teamwork, women excel. And also women are multitasking. That is our daily experience in our life. Look at your mother at home. Look at your sister at home. Maybe your sister-in-law at home, your grandmother. Multitasking. Lot of work they do at a time. Multitasking. They have to cook in the kitchen, wash the clothes, iron the clothes, at the same time get ready to go to their workplace. I see this no in my staff members. Multitasking. Some of our staff members, they get up early in the morning, prepare breakfast, prepare lunch, and see everything, prepare for the lessons, and come on time to the college. Multitasking. And they are very excelling in teaching also. They do very well in their teaching. And I'm sure and I am certain about their achievement at home too. Multitasking. Women also are motivated by challenges. They are motivated by challenges. Challenges are there, risks are there. Men by nature, they are not motivated. They face the challenges where they go for risky task, no fear. But these women on the whole, they are motivated. When there is challenge, that becomes a motivating factor to face the challenge courageously. They are motivated. Okay, these are beautiful challenges are there in daily life. Sometime no, a lot of workload will be there, lot of work, lot of pressure from the higher authorities. They are motivated. This becomes a challenge. It is a challenging task for them. Still, they will do it successfully and in a beautiful way. Next one is handle crisis with patience. Women are known for patience. Okay, men also have patience, but comparing here I compare women are more patient than men. Any crisis situation, men will blurt out. Okay, there will be a lot of hue, lot of noise when there is a crisis. But whereas women, they handle with patience and in silence, patient, and they will have long enduring type. They are very, very endurance. Whatever is there, they endure silently. So, in an organization, in an institution, when there is crisis, women are to play the best role in this regard. These are the beautiful characteristics, beautiful nature of women, women leaders, and all these aspects are very much needed for a leader to handle the situation. Now I would like to share with you indian situation indian situation, women leadership, how women um, play their role of a leader in spite of the situations they deal with. Here I want to bring to you women on the whole, whether uh, India or other countries, women are women. Women have their role to play as a leader. Definitely, they are very good leaders. But in coming to India, there is little blocks, the little discrimination, there is little stumbling, a block that doesn't allow them to play their role of leadership in a way they should. So there are certain areas of discrimination. And because of the discrimination, women are set apart, set back, not apart, set back. They have little bit of blocks to come forward, but still they play a very good role in their life. Let us see malnutrition. Malnutrition. Second one is poor health, lack of education. Next, overwork. And then we have lack of skills, mistreatment given to the woman, and powerlessness. These are the aspect. These are major areas of discrimination makes women in India not to play their role in a way they should. Let us see the malnutrition. How women are more what must say um, becoming victim of the nutrition, and why they have this malnutrition in women is the Indian situation. In India, on the whole, I'm speaking general, okay? It is a general, what must say, it's a general feeling, and it is a general situation where boy or men are given more preference for nutrition than women. At times, when I sit for counseling and I listen to my students, they tell me a lot of stories, their families, especially parents, especially mother. She, being a lady, she herself makes this difference in the food. More food is served to a boy child than a girl child. Sometimes students know they come with the anger without having their breakfast to college. We know what happened. They come and share. I don't have breakfast today because I'm angry with my mother. She prepared food. First, she gave to my brother, and she saw that my brother ate, and it is getting late for me to come to college. Then only she gives me food, and also she gave me less proportion. See the word less proportion. See, with the counseling, we give importance in by listening to the words which they use. Less proportion. Yes, girls are given less proportion food, and the food is delayed, and the preference is more for the boys than the girls. And what happens due to this malnutrition? And the food is not sufficient for the body to grow, and it will affect the whole personality of a girl, her her growth in the brain, whatever may be her physical, what must say, physical system, everything get weakened. Naturally, no concentration in the studies. Cannot remember, even though because of hunger, more in concentration on hunger, and you know, all of us know what will happen. And when this, and in India, children, a girl child, no, women, children, like adolescent children, we'll say, won't say children, women, they get married quickly. By the time they're 20 here in India, they get 20. Of course, today, because of education, little bit understanding is there, realization is there, marriages are a little bit postponed after 23, 25, whatever maybe in India. But in villages, look at this woman, she's from village. In villages, by the time they're 18, 19, they get married. And soon after marriage, they give birth to child. And during pregnancy, if this adolescents, I would say, the women are not fed well, not given proper nutrition, not only she, but also child whom she is giving birth will be very, very, very weak in health. This is a situation in India. And what role she can play, leadership role. Though she want to play, it will be a stumbling block for her to go further. As a result, poor health. Because of malnutrition, the result is poor health, often falling sick, often going to doctors. And also, with all her poor health, she has to take care of her family who are sick also. You see, women are like that in India. Very, very poor health. Naturally, it will stand as a stumbling block for the role to play as a leader. Next one is a lack of education. In India, boys are preferred to girls as far as education is concerned. In the family, um, what happens is if there is boy child, boy is given sent for higher education, but girls will remain a certain degree of education. Of course, I'm not saying On the whole, I'm speaking on the whole. Today also there are women in par with, girls in par with boys in education. They excel well, they're intelligent, they're smart, the IQ level is very high. But what happens is generally boys prefer to girls. Okay, when the boy is preferred to girl in the family, the girl child will feel a lot. One of my students told me, it is a degree college, okay, ours is a degree college. She told me like this, sister, my brother want to become engineer and he was sent to for higher studies. I wanted to become a doctor and my father and mother said, no, we cannot. We cannot afford. You see the word, we cannot afford. This student's argument is that why my parents cannot afford me and they can afford to send my brother for higher education. And she says, sister, I got more marks than my brother. Why this difference? And they send me to this college so that I may have that minimum degree graduation. And then in the counseling, this is very painful for us also to hear this kind of a fact. We are only in counseling, we can do only listening, and that will give them a kind of boost. Lack of education. Children, girl child always feels a girl child is a wounded child. A girl child is a wounded child. She was not given opportunity to grow. She was not given chance to study well, though they have intelligence. So lack of education is one of the factors in India where girls are kept back and boys are preferred more, though they are not intelligent. So this also hampers their leadership role. Next one is overwork. When you do not have education, proper education, what happens? You have to get into menial work. You cannot work in companies. You cannot go for institutions to work. You have to work menial work. Building. Most of our women in the villages, they work hard. Though they are in par with men in work, they are not paid the wages, daily wages in par with men. Their wages are lesser than men. Overwork. These women, they go home, they cook, get up early in the morning, they cook. They have to cook their breakfast, they cook lunch, they have to wash their clothes and come to work in the hot sun. And most of the villages, we can see this kind of scenario. So overwork is given to women and lack of skills. Another factor is lack of skill which hampers the leadership role of women. They don't have much skills because no opportunity is given, very, very little. But whereas men have better chances, they have better skills, lot of growth and development in their career, and they go for higher. Next one is a mistreatment. Mistreatment. Whether you are educated or not educated, in India, women are treated very, very badly. I'm not saying their home. Once they get married, they have a lot of mistreatment by their in-laws. In-laws, I'm telling, mother-in-law, especially mother-in-law. They are treated very badly. And what happens is most of the women suffer having no support from their husbands. In India, once you are married, you have to be submissive to your in-laws, to your husband. And parents do encourage them to have that patience. I said, by nature, women have patience. They have endurance. They endure. They suffer silently. Okay? And they are mistreated in their families. They suffer. And also these educated women, when they come to the institution or organization in their workplace, there also they suffer. There also they suffer sometimes because they became a kind of target. In India, we have that manager or a boss They try to play up. So women suffer. Naturally, her leadership role will get affected. Powerlessness, next aspect in India is a powerlessness. Women are powerless. Powerless. However, they are educated today. Majority of the women in India are powerless. Powerless in every aspect. Now we will see in India a lot of rapes. Okay, where will they go? Whom will they turn to for their solace, for the support? No one will support them, not even their family. When a girl is raped, she cannot complain to the police. Family members will tell her, keep silence. It's a shame for our family. Therefore, this kind of social evils are on rise in India. And who is a victim? Girl is a victim. She has to turn to none, only to herself. So much so their leadership role will get affected. Now I have spoken to you the situation in India. I'm not saying Indian women never play a leadership role. They play their leadership role beautifully and actively in spite of all these discrimination, in spite of all these blocks, in spite of all these problems. Women play a greater role in leadership. They are indeed a very good leaders. And we are having so many examples in India. Women played a very good role in leadership than men, in spite of all this. But I have given you all, dear friends, the situation in India, how women suffer, and still they play their role as a leader. They are great leaders indeed, I would say that, in spite of all this. That's why, no, on the whole, in the world, we need to encourage women. We need to encourage a girl child, never suppress them, never oppress them. Let us see today, when we listen to all these things, one thing's come to my mind is father of the nation, Mahatma Gandhiji. We need to recall his words. He said something beautiful on women leadership. Confinement of women to routine households and the denial of opportunity for productive works and decision making would do irreparable damage to nation. Our late Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru said, in the beginning I have told you, when we empower women, what happens? Family moves, village moves, and also nation moves. In the same way, the father of our nation says the same thing. We cannot confine them to only to the household work, cooking, washing, cleaning. Huh? No. And we should not deny them, giving them opportunity for productive works and decision making. If we denied, it will do irreparable damage to nation. You see the great people, how they think about the women's role as a leader. They all spoke. Women need to be empowered. Women need to be given chances. Women need to be encouraged. They need to be supported so that countries, what was nation will, country or nation's development will become one of them. And also, I want to bring to your, I would like to share today something about Pope Paul II. He too is a Pope, a great leader, and also he's a, what must say, saint, saint in our time. He said something about women. He realized the women's role as a leader and what women are capable of. So when he reflected on the role of women, he just thanked God. He just thanked God. In the Fourth World Conference on Women, His Holiness Pope John Paul II, in his letter he addresses the women in the following manner. Dear friends, I want to share with you his words. He says, thank you, women who are mothers. Okay? He said, thank you, women who are mothers. You have sheltered human beings within yourself in a unique experience of joy and travail. This experience will make you become God's own smile upon the newborn child, the one guides your child's first step, who helps it to grow, and who is the anchor as a child makes its way along the journey. Thank you, women who are wives. You irrevocably join your future to that of your husbands in a relationship of mutual giving at the service of love and life. Thank you, women who are daughters and women who are sisters. Into that family and of all society, you bring richness of your sensitivity, your intuitiveness, your generosity and fidelity. Thank you, women who work. You are present and active in every areas of life, social, economic, cultural, artistic, and political. Thank you, every woman, for the simple fact of being a woman. Through the insight, which is so much a part of your womanhood, you enrich the world's understanding and help to make human relations more honest and authentic. These are the beautiful words of Pope John Paul II, a saint. I want to tell you, dear friends, today when we reflect on these great people, only one thing is left for all of us. Nothing but we need to rise. Women need to rise and thank God for creating us a beautiful human beings, a precious gift. We are indeed a precious gift to humanity. We need to salute our fellow sisters with pride and forward with courage, and we must go forward with courage and confidence, joy and happiness and empowerment. And let us, all of us, every woman, I would say, play our leadership role in a unique way and contribute our best to the country and also the world at large. May our world find strength and grace in womanhood. Thank you very much. I take this opportunity to thank especially respected Professor Dr. Ratnakar Sir, CEO and Director Academics, IMRF, Institute for Education Research, for giving me this opportunity. And thank you, dear participant, for your patience listening. God bless you all.
We are happy to have in our midst Dr. Shirin Abbas, visiting faculty, Whistling Woods International Mumbai, and Symbiosis Institute of Design, Pune, India. Shirin Abbas is the first person to be awarded British Chevening Scholarship from Foreign Commonwealth Office, UK, studied journalism at University of Westminster School of Communication, Design and Media at London Harrow campus, and interned with the Irish Times Dublin, Ireland in 1999. Dr. Shirin Abbas is expertised in women's studies, and she is known for gender studies expert besides journalism. She has from her research desk more than 30 research publications. She has attended more than 35 international and national conferences. Besides, she conducted 5 international seminars. She has carried 8 research projects and delivered more than 14 invited lectures, along with 7 books from her pen. She received 5 awards of international and national repute. A vast and dynamic, experienced lady, professor, doctor, and many more to tell about Dr. Shirin Abbas. Madam, we are happy to have in our midst. Thank you for accepting our invitation. Kindly speak to our audience. Thank you, madam.
Everybody. I'm joining you from Lucknow right now, locked out and locked down like a lot of us in these times. And I must congratulate Dr. Ratnakar Bala for getting together and continuing with this beautiful series of conferences that he organizes. And my association with Dr. Bala and IMRF goes back to 2015 when I myself was completing my PhD, and it was a wonderful experience. It is, the publication in scholarly journals, the research rigor is actually very, very heartening to note. So today I return to you all, not as a participant, but as a speaker. And I must humbly thank Dr. Bala for giving me this opportunity and to share with you some of my, learnings about how mobiles are changing lives for women in India, especially rural women. So these are based on some consultancies that I have done with UNICEF, with BBC Media Action, and also part of my PhD, which was on the exponential growth and usage of mobiles in rural India. And I have singled out case studies from there, some case studies from international, case studies also for you. So without further ado, I'll just share my screen and take you forth on a journey to learn how mobiles are changing the lives and empowering so many women across India. Okay, so uh, yeah, stories of social change for women through using mobiles, or what I call is empowerment. M dash empowerment. It's a pun on the word empowerment as such, and it talks about mobile as a development communication tool. I have been teaching development communication at several institutions, the Symbiosis uh, Institute of Media for one, the Whistling Woods International, and a number of other places, and doing guest lectures uh, on this topic, because I think one of the most powerful development tool that has come forward in the last 10 years or so is the mobile. And the idea for my PhD came much before the entire concept of digital India, and the whole thought plan and the thought process came forth from PM Modi. And we'll go across on a journey where we will be learning more about how this one gadget has become the lifeline for so many women all over across India. So I will start with my presentation overview. We'll go over some of the talking points. Basically, breaking social barriers, then some case studies, Pink Phone Initiative, Back to School, saying no to child marriage. These are actual case studies which have been gathered over the years uh, on how young children, women have used the mobile to empower themselves. combating sexual harassment, and then, of course, one of my favorite studies about what uh, you know what can be done when there is a public-private partnership. This is a BBC Media Action Initiative, and we'll learn more about it as we go forth. And of course, no means no, and how the mobile has helped there. Okay, so here we go. Now, something to think about. Uh, Rakow and Navarro in 1993 came across this, and this is basically the thought process that we start our presentation with. The cellular phone for men is an extension of the public world, and for women, it is an extension of the private world, right? For women, uh, it's a reverse journey for men and for women. Because for men it is reaching out to the public world, whereas for a lot of women who are multitasking with families at home, with small children at home, it becomes an extension of their private world. So you find them, cautioning their child. You find them, keeping tabs on another child who may be at school or who may be, you know alone in the house, and plus managing their deadlines, managing their work, and very efficiently so. So let's come across other case studies, MSBC and women. So access to mobile phones and mobile internet is increasing exponentially around the world. This is a 2012 World Bank study, and already they were talking about the exponential increase of mobiles. Many studies have already shown the engaged use of mobiles both by and for women, from using mobiles to supporting oneself financially. This is a study that has been done by Taki and Kondola, to mutual support in healthcare, uh, reaching out to each other, Chib and Chen in 2011, to that's finance, in civic technology and education. And these are the scholars who have been talking about these fantastic innovations that have happened in the mobile, and they have helped women do so much more. So mobiles thus have the potential to disproportionately affect women, for many of whom mobiles are the first and the foremost ICT device to be used compared to men. Have you noticed, one thing that I have been chasing this, and I have seen a fall in dowry-related crimes. You know, in the 70s, in the 80s, even in the 90s, uh, early 2000s, uh, you started seeing a decline in dowry related crimes. Why? Because you have a tool right here with you where a woman can reach out and contact. She's in constant touch with her parents. So that that reaching out, that approach, that access to advocacy has resulted in a phenomenal decrease in dowry related crimes. I'm not saying that crimes against women have stopped or domestic violence have stopped, but with the police helplines being accessible, so with the click of a button here, a lot of social barriers are being broken. It was the accepted custom that there would be no contact for the first year of marriage. Okay, generally there is a period where the bride comes home, and there are certain seasons in which she returns home, or certain festivals where she returns home, and then she comes back. So the first year, there was intermittent interaction with her in-laws, which sorry, with her family, and she was largely at her in-laws home, in a new atmosphere, trying to adjust. And very often, there were a lot of dowry related instances, domestic violence reported in the initial year itself. But with mobile phone, she is constantly in reach, in touch with her family. So that, the spread of information has become so fast, and you're in daily touch with the girl who has left her house and gone to another house and is adjusting. So measures for interaction, measures for resolution have become so much more fortified. And the biggest barrier to men and women's phone use was the cost. Initially, when the phones first came in, the biggest barrier to uh, using a phone, and generally it was the man in the house who had it. But today the devices are cheaper, and for those in village with low income, there are that entire taboo that phones must be used sparingly is now gone. I have been part of certain UNICEF studies, and I have noticed that you know uh, so many girls come up. They all are carrying phones, or at least in each home there is at least a single device present, sometimes more. So they have access to information, plus they have access to resolution of their problems. So uh, the frequency of mobile usage has gone up, and with that has come the decrease in dowry related violence. And there is data to support the same. If you go to the NCRB, National Crime Records Bureau, uh, dowry related crimes have definitely uh, shown a decrease. But unfortunately, in our country, the domestic violence, especially in the time of lockdown, we have seen serious cases coming up. So that's another trajectory that we don't want to go on. Right now, we want to focus on mobiles. Uh, it's been a very positive tool for women empowerment, right? Now, here I would like to mention a study that has an initiative in Cambodia that helped a lot. There were a lot of this was a study that was prompted by Oxfam, and they came across with the Pink Phones project in Cambodia, which gave mobiles to women in rural communities so that they could access vital farming information such as crop prices and weather to help improve their livelihoods. So, women in Kampong Thom province in central Cambodia have been using the pink phones provided by Oxfam to get information that helps them plan when to harvest, when to sow. This goes a long way towards protecting livelihoods and securing them a better future. So, women uh, farmers have benefited greatly through this initiative. The phones also enable women to buy bigger plots of land, sell more vegetables, save money, make improvements to their homes. Before the project, women weren't in a level position with the men in relation to selling uh, their crops and seeking better prices. The results have led to amazing sagas of self sufficiency, independence in a largely patriarchal society. And if you want to read more about it, there is a link here, and you can go to the link and learn more about this very innovative and path-breaking initiative by Oxfam in Cambodia. These are some of the pictures of the media coverage that happened, and it was called Think Pink because these phones were pink in color, and we associate pink. I don't know why they limit just pink. The entire, gamut of colors, the entire rainbow is ours. But yeah, pink is supposed to be associated with women. So think pink. And for the first time in the region, this Oxfam led initiative has changed the lives of hundreds of women. So it was a very successful initiative, and kudos to Oxfam for doing that. Now, these case studies are part from my own. I'm sorry, it was interfering in the slides, so I put myself off. Uh, Back to school. The mobiles have helped uh, a lot of children, a lot of young girls come back to school, and there has been an exponential growth of mobiles across India, even in its most backward districts. These case studies come from the Sonbhad area of Western UP, and rural teachers with mobile phones have been empowering students So very often, the one tragedy in India was that for those 5 days, the, we know all what we are referring to. There would be a sudden decrease in attendance in schools, in colleges, and suddenly there would be just a disappearance of the girls. So now with the mobile numbers of the teachers accessible and written on the school walls, they have taken up multiple roles, not just those of teachers, but of counselors and mentors. As role models for these young girls, they have served as effective mediators, stepping in to counsel their students on options for higher education and re-enrolling students who have dropped out. So, it used to be a tough task to follow up these cases. But now, with the mobile number accessible, very often, the family has forced the girl to stay at home, or there are adverse circumstances, and they have memorized the numbers, or they have written them down somewhere, and they have contacted their teachers who have come and negotiated with the parents and got these girls back to school. So these are pictures of some of the students who were re-enrolled after being persuaded by the Anganwadi teachers in schools across Western UP. And you can see with the bright smiles that, they're happy being back. They're happy getting their education back. So, uh, another case study which is nice. Of course, we all know about helplines for women's safety. This picture on the left is, in two pieces. Behind the mask, behind the smile, and behind all that makeup and lovely looking woman, there are scars. There are scars which she's scared to reveal. But there are helplines today in focus. There are women in distress helpline, which is 1091. There is an all India helpline to stop domestic abuse, 181. And there are links to other helplines active in India for women and children, which I have given here. And anybody who wants to check can go and take a look at these helplines and know what they are doing. And be aware and make other people around you aware of uh, you know, what is being done. And so, here is another case study. You see the girl on the extreme right? She's Pooja. And this is a case study of Lalganj village in Mirzapur district. Pooja had to drop out of school due to financial constraints. She could have been just another girl, cowed into a teenage marriage, but things became different. Pooja not only refused to get married, she also stepped in when her aunt was trying to marry her younger sister, who was not yet an adult. Ranjana was being married off at the tender age of 17, much against her wishes. So Pooja decided to take up cudgels on her behalf. The family was counseled, and finally the marriage was stopped. So not only has this girl empowered, and I don't mean EMPOWERED, I mean M, capital M dash powered, getting empowered through a mobile. So finally, not only was Pooja empowered, but she also helped prevent a child marriage, minor's marriage, which is a very promising case study. And here you can see we used students, we used uh, a very sensitive thought process was put into this. And when we were recording this, I was a teacher, and this photography has been done by my students, and who are about the same age as these girls. So it was a wonderful, apart from just doing this case study, it was wonderful to see, you know, uh, the beautiful relationship that developed between these girls and my students, because suddenly these girls realized that, these were role models, these girls with cameras coming and clicking them and directing them, do this, do that. They actually went on a recce, and they found this little river flowing, and all the girls were taken there. And so when you see a girl your age in charge, it is a very, very positive influence. And that was also the effort from our part to bolster the confidence of these girls. So it has been very, very successful. Today, Pooja has gone on to join college. And I think that is one of the greatest takeaways that we have received from this this particular case study. So, coming to one of my favorite examples of what a little bit of innovation, a little bit of thought process going in can do and create a healthcare revolution. Mobile Kunji. As an audio-visual job aid for community health workers in rural India, the Mobile Kunji supported interpersonal communication and helped provide standardized, credible information. It was introduced as a job aid for community health workers working in maternal care in rural India. It was created by Ananya and BBC Media Action. So far, the project has been launched in Bihar, Odisha, Bengal, and Uttar Pradesh. It was wrapped up around, I think, the middle of this decade, 2015 or so. Don't quote me on that. I like to be historically correct. So when I do, I'll get back to you. But I think it was 2015. A deck of 40 cards go quite literally hand in hand with pre-recorded audio clips accessible from a basic mobile phone. Okay, a featured phone, not a smartphone. The cards contain information of the crucial early stages of pre and postnatal health care, breaking down a vast subject into 8 important behaviors and over 100 points which encourage attitudinal change towards, pregnancy, towards healthcare, towards institutionalized delivery. And they cover the first 1,000 days from the time a woman realizes that she's expecting to the time that the child has crossed the age where he or she can be susceptible to dangerous infections, and it guides the rural women through their pregnancy and through the delivery and keeps them prepared. Okay, you know how many people are not able to go for an institutionalized delivery because of inaccessible roads, bad climate, and have to deliver at home. So in the Mobile Kunji, they have even made preparations for that eventuality in case a delivery has to be conducted at home. And the maternal mortality rate has drastically dropped in areas where this Mobile Kunji was launched. So now you can see on your right, you see these cards. It's a deck of cards, and the phone that is given to the Anganwadi and the Asha workers, and they can dial the codes that are given on the cards for that particular, why is an iron tablet needed during pregnancy. So she asks, she befriends the pregnant woman with the permission of the family, of course. So it becomes a whole, and there's a very celebratory, you know, bonhomie created so that they don't feel, there is no intimidation. The barriers are broken down, and these women go ahead and then, they say, Acha, do you know why you have to have these iron tablets? And maybe the lady will say no. So they dial this code, this short code that is on the card, and each card carries a little couplet, which carries a little verse, which is really nice. And she'll recite that, and then she will dial. And on the, on the phone, when she dials that code, there is a pre-recorded message by a doctor. Okay. Now, the minute you know that there is a healthcare professional who is answering your query, that confidence, that faith in that knowledge goes up. So it's been a very, very important social behavioral change tool. And in rural India, earlier many people used to believe that a woman should deliver the baby at home. The umbilical cord should be treated with mustard oil or turmeric, and sometimes we have had cases where they even put cow dung there because of its beneficial properties. Of course, we know that there is no way that that stands true. So, also that there was no need to immunize children. So, as a result, Bihar had, excuse me, Bihar had some of the most, you know, terrible cases of maternal and child mortality rates in India. Over 300 mothers were dying for every 1 lakh live births, and 16% of infants used to die on the day of their birth. So, this is where the mobile Kunji stepped in and started to make strides in rural health sector, especially reproductive and neonatal care. It's a study, it's an effort that has been lauded the world over. It has lent medical authority to the health worker as she counsels families on pre and post natal health care and is free to use for registered health workers. The Kunji cards featured illustrations and key messages on maternal and child health, nutrition, and sanitation. Each card had a unique mobile shortcode that corresponded to a specific audio message that could be played to the family. And the audio content was delivered in a female voice by a purported doctor character who was called Dr. Anita. The call costs were subsidized by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to make mobile Kunji available free of cost to community health workers. This effort has won accolades for India across the world. A case study on Mobile Kunji and Mobile Academy was included, and I'm giving you the pages here to let you know that yes, it's actually there in the fourth volume of the Health Compendium produced by USAID. It is also featured in an MIT journal as a case study on mobile innovations by Sarah Chamberlain, head of ICT at BBC Media India in November 2014. So the world over, this effort is being lauded because uh, it has uh, it has been successful where a lot of efforts have failed. The health of worker also had the option to use the leftover minutes. Suppose she could not, like she was given 60 minutes in a month to use, and if there were leftover minutes, then she could complete a certification course over a period of time, which was a basic IVRS thing. You have to listen to, you have to press a button, listen to certain information, and then you have a question and answer session at the end of the lecture in which you press yes or no, red or green button on your smartphone. And uh, you know, so many people, so many health workers have gone and done this course several times over to improve their scores, and they virtually know the codes by heart. So it is such a heartening move in rural India. Another thing, which has helped empower young ladies, young girls, women, is where it comes to Eve teasers. Since the launch of the 1090 helpline, I had done a paper of this. In fact, if Dr. Bala will remember, that I had presented two papers in Goa, and one of them was on this helpline, and it was on the Human Rights Conference. Right, Dr. Bala? So it was, on this very helpline, and what it is doing to change the lives, how it is functioning, and what it is doing to change the lives of girls. Even today, we have a case where in UP a girl has been dragged. She had gone to fill an online form. She has been dragged into a field and raped, gang raped, and killed. So, you know, there is a drastic need for stringent measures to, deter such events from happening. And helplines such as the 1090 or the recently introduced police helplines in UP, the 112, have uh, helped girls dissuade the unwanted advances of men, young and old alike. It is termed as the It was termed as the Women Power Line in states like Uttar Pradesh, where it has helped anonymously lab threaten the assaulter with action and eventually keep him on surveillance digitally for a period of 3 years. And the entire process, I've gone through it, is extremely embarrassing. There is a warning, then there is a second warning, and then finally you're brought into the place, and it looks like a, the it's you're made to swear on whichever holy book that you can before a law officer that you will not be repeating it. And you're informed that you will now, with your phone number having either your Aadhaar card or having your PAN number or some identification, some identity card. So you are put in a digital cage for the next 3 years and you're being watched. And believe you me, I have seen some of these live sessions. They're enough to scare the hell out of these people. You know, it has helped stem many a case of eve teasing and harassment. So, I hope that you have enjoyed knowing more about these studies. Uh, my effort now is to compile all these together and come forth uh, with a handbook which talks about these case studies and experiences by these children. And well, where can you contact me? I leave you with a lot of thanks. Thanks to IMRF and to Dr. Ratnakar Bala. And here's my address, my phone number, my email address. Everything's there. I prefer to be messaged on WhatsApp with the same number than you directly calling me. I may be busy, so feel free to reach me anytime. And in case you have any queries, any questions, any guidances, one thing to all the females in this beautiful international research conference. Uh, I would like to leave you with a message about my own story. I was 20 years old. I had just done an MA first year and I had got married. But luckily, I just continued to study. And today, to my credit and to the credit of the people who supported me, my parents, my children, my friends, uh, I have a triple MA, an MA in economics, an MA in environment and ecology. And after my PhD, I went on to do an MA from IGNOU in women and gender studies, which is how I am here before you as a gender expert. Never give up. And I leave you because I'm from Lucknow with a share from Majaz, which is so beautiful if you understand the depth of it. If you really go into the depth. तेरे माथे पे ये आंचल बहुत ही खूब है लेकिन तेरे माथे पे ये आंचल बहुत ही खूब है लेकिन तो इस आंचल का एक परचम परचम मीन्स फ्लैग तो इस आंचल का एक परचम बना लेती तो अच्छा था. Women are the flag bearers of our society. As Pandit Nehru had said, you educate a man, you educate a single person. But if you educate a woman, you educate the whole family. So let us today join in the efforts to empower women around us, to help out. Uh, COVID times have inflicted very, strenuous uh, circumstances upon all of us. Everybody is under pressure. More so, those women who are working for you, who are around you. Look out, keep your eyes open, and make sure that cases of domestic violence, cases of abuse, uh, cases of exploitations can be stopped. Because, if uh, 2 and 2 and 50 make a million, we'll see that day come round. We need to join hands. Thank you once again, Dr. Bala, and I hope I lived up to your expectations of me. Uh, so, uh, with this, it is me signing off from a very musty evening in Lucknow, and I hope the lockdown ends soon. I'm dying to socialize, dying to meet friends, dying to hear more case studies so that I can come back to you and tell you more about what beautiful work can be done with this one simple tool. Thank you so much. Thank you. It's been a pleasure being here, and I'm honored and humbled. And anytime that Dr. Bala calls me, I'm there. Thank you so much.